Today's presentation looks at the top 5 diseases you might encounter with your home chicken flock. Before we actually get into the diseases, we want to look at prevention. Ideally, you would not have any diseases in your chicken flock and you'd have a carefree experience raising your chickens. To help you achieve that, there are many steps you can take to prevent getting diseases. These include cleaning out all the water containers and adding new fresh water every day. Fresh water is very important to the health of your chicken flock. Also, make sure that your food is fresh. If your food is old, and especially if it is moldy, it can cause health issues. You want to clean out the chicken coop frequently, and at least once a year give it a thorough cleaning, getting in all the nooks and crannies and being sure it's perfectly clean. Make sure there is enough space at the waterers and feeders for all the chickens to get their turn without being attacked by more dominant chickens. If they don't have enough space, the more dominant chickens will peck at the less dominant ones and cause injuries, which could cause infection and disease. You want to be sure your environment is as stress-free as possible. This means don't overcrowd your chicken coop and your run. Be sure that you don't put them next to a dog that barks constantly, etc., etc. Basically, give them a good existence. And if you have a large enough flock, you might want to consider investing vaccinations for all your chickens. The first disease we're looking at is fowl pox. It's also called avian pox and chicken pox, but that's not related to chicken pox that people get. The pox that chickens get is not transmittable to humans. So basically, fowl pox is a viral disease that is transmitted from chickens to chickens via mosquito bites. A mosquito will suck in infected blood. When it bites another chicken, it transmits the virus. And it typically looks like this on the outside. You can see all the pox marks. There are 2 forms of pox, dry and wet. The dry form is characterized by warty bumps, typically on the face or legs, just like shown on the picture here. The wet form exhibits itself by lesions inside the mouth and in the air passages. Again, that's like open sores and bumps that you would see inside its mouth. The disease is rarely fatal unless a respiratory infection develops in conjunction with the pox, which can happen with the wet variant of the pox. There is no cure to the disease, but there are vaccinations available to ensure that your chickens don't get it. The next class of diseases is general respiratory diseases. These are any diseases that affect the ability of the chicken to breathe and the function of the lungs. Typically, you notice respiratory diseases by coughing, sneezing, and runny eyes. Avian flu is an extreme example of a respiratory disease. Because respiratory diseases are so varied, the only way you can accurately tell what disease your chickens have is with the use of a local veterinarian. Many respiratory diseases can be cured. A few, like avian flu, are fatal to your flock, and as you've seen in the news quite frequently, when avian flu comes into a flock, they just kill all the birds to ensure that it doesn't spread. It's a very bad disease. The next disease on the list is infectious bronchitis. It's a highly contagious disease and causes great respiratory distress, especially at night. You get a lot of coughing from the chickens. Basically, if the chickens get infected, it will diminish their appetites, cause egg production to drop dramatically, or if it is producing eggs at all, it will be very poor quality eggs with brittle shells and milky whites. Bronchitis is a viral disease, and unfortunately, there's no treatment for it. The best thing you can do is keep your chickens warm and comfortable in a draft-free environment and wait for the disease to run its course. And of course, try to separate your sick chickens from your healthy chickens so the disease doesn't spread. The next common disease is external parasites. These include things that you're familiar with: fleas, ticks, lice, and mites. They typically get into your flock from an external carrier like wild birds mixing with your chickens, rodents, and new chickens that you introduce to the flock. To see if your chickens are infected, just give them a detailed visual examination. Check between the feathers and around the head, under the wings, and at the scales covering the legs. You treat external parasites with an insecticidal powder approved for chickens. Basically, you spread it around the coop and on the chickens and whatnot in accordance with the instructions, and over time it will kill the parasites. So as you can see over here on the right, you've got a little parasite here, and here you have a massive infection underneath the feathers. Then the last category is internal parasites. The typical internal parasites are worms and coccidia. Coccidia typically attacks chicks, young chickens, because they still have an immature immune system and they are susceptible to getting the coccidia. It causes a disease called coccidiosis. You will likely notice this disease by loose droppings, sometimes tinged with blood. This is the inside of an intestine of a chicken infected with coccidiosis. Chickens also get worms just like dogs. They get them from pecking on the ground. They can get roundworms and tapeworms and several other types of worms. Over here you can see a picture of hairworms that the chicken had. You usually notice a worm infection by the condition of your bird. They will appear droopy, not much energy. Egg laying will be reduced, and they will usually exhibit weight loss. And sometimes you will be able to see worms in the droppings if they have a severe infection. There are various products that can help control and eradicate coccidia and worms in your population. The folks at your feed store can generally help you out with this. To get more information about chicken diseases, we've posted a URL down below in the description. Just go to that URL and click on it. It'll give you more information about these 5 diseases and also links to resources for even more chicken diseases that you can experience in your flock. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something.